pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Roll call to, Lori?
Trustee Blower,
Yes.
Trustee Patterson,
Present.
Trustee Yordi,
Yes. I'd like to move for the adoption of motion 22-175 to appoint Administrator Lori Kyle as the acting fiscal officer for the purpose of taking minutes for this meeting. I need a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Patterson,
Yes.
Trustee Blower,
Yes.
Trustee Yordi,
Yes. I'd like to move for the adoption of motion 22-176 to dispense with reading of the minutes from the November 3rd, 2022 regular meeting. I need a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Patterson,
Yes.
Trustee Blower,
Yes.
Trustee Yordi,
Yes. I'd like to move for the adoption of motion 22-177 to approve the minutes of the November 3rd, 2022 regular meeting. I need a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Patterson,
Yes.
Trustee Blower,
Yes.
Trustee Yordi.
Yes. Fiscal officers report by Lori Kyle.
Let's see, first here's the minutes for your approval. And next coming for your approval is the certification of purchase orders and checks written since the last meeting. Also in your packet is a report of the receipts since the last meeting and an appropriation status report as of today, November 17th. For your consideration later in the meeting, there will be a resolution for an appropriation increase for the fire levy fund. Donations were made in memory of former trustee Tom Wilsey. Some were directed to the fire department. The fire department would like to use some of those funds to purchase a new sofa for Station 102. So that resolution will enter those funds into the fire levy fund for use. Also, there will be a motion later in the meeting for your consideration to retroactively change the pay date from the last pay, which fell on a holiday. It fell on Friday, November 11th, and it is to change the pay date to Thursday, November 10th, since the banks were closed. And that's all that the fiscal officer had this evening. If you have any questions about the resolution or the motion.
I have none.
Also have none.
Okay, we'll move on to Chief Burton Roberts with the presentation of the new officer, Tim Baird, for hire.
One step forward, I'd like to recommend the hiring of Timothy Baird, who's completed all the pre-employment requirements and be hired on as full-time.
Okay. I'd like to move for the adoption of, wait a minute. I'd like to move for the adoption of motion 22-178 to hire Tim Baird into the position of full-time police officer at the rate of $27.04 per hour. This employment is subject to the completion of all pre-employment testing and is in accordance with the current staffing summary and pay rate resolution. I need a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Patterson,
Yes.
Trustee Blower,
Yes.
Trustee Yordi.
Yes. Okay.
Stand right up there.
Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. You'll insert your name. I, Tim Baird, do solemnly swear
I, Tim Baird, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States of America,
that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Ohio,
the Constitution and the laws of the state of Ohio,
and the laws and resolutions of Ross Township, Butler County, Ohio,
the laws and resolutions of Ross Township, Butler County, Ohio,
and to the best of my ability,
and to the best of my ability,
will discharge the duties of the office of Police Constable for Ross Township.
and to the best of my abilities will discharge the duties of the office of Police Constable for Ross Township. Thank you.
Want to get pictures?
Oh, there's a lot of them.
Oh, okay. Jay.
Yeah, he's next. Come on. Let's go. Come on. Being shy, come on. Let's roll.
There you go.
Around. Smile, please. Pretend like you care.
Ready?
Seriously? Yeah. This other one will.
Thank you.
I think so.
Okay, I get it. Come on up.
Some things never change their body.
How I.
Good to see you. Was the game better than this?
If police people want to stay, you're more than welcome, or you're free to leave if you'd like to leave.
Look at him go.
Nice of you guys to be here.
It was a pleasure, buddy. Yeah, good to see you.
Is us? Very good.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Hey,
And there were 10.
Back to our normal attendance.
hey, we'll move on to Tim Abbott and Rich Surace. They're from Energy Alliance Community Aggregation Presentation.
And you want to, where do you want us at?
Wherever you want to stay.
Oh,
Do you want to be probably right there?
Podium.
Podium?
so you're going to project up here? Yeah. Great.
Don't we move
Yes, I'd like to see it.
forward as behind us?
You need help? I guess that's what I get. All right, Kate, I'm dripping. Thank you.
You guys see okay? If this is here? You good?
So, Ellen, trustees, thanks for having us here tonight. Many of you know me. I'm Tim Abbott, and I served on Fairfield City Council for 15 years. And before we get into the presentation, I want to thank all of the elected officials and your staff for the good work that they do in Ross Township and the many hours that you spend away from your families to do good things in the community where you live. But again, many of you know me, worked for Duke Energy for 35 years. I was your Duke Energy representative here in Ross for most of those 35 years and retired. And I joined with Energy Alliances with Rich Surace, who's here with me tonight. Rich is our COO and he runs the company. Energy Alliances was founded in 1985 and has been doing this energy consulting and supply in the Cincinnati area since 1985. So we're not new to it. Ellen and others in the Butler County Township Association have probably heard a presentation about aggregation from Rich in prior years. So what we would like to do tonight is talk about the benefits of a aggregation program on the electric side here in Ross Township. We have a PowerPoint presentation. What we prefer to do is have a conversation if we can. If you have questions along the way, feel free to ask. Rich will go over the program that brings a tremendous amount of benefit to the community as a buying group once you're able to form that. And Rich will go over our list of other communities in the region and specifically here in Butler County that we already are serving through these aggregation programs. So Rich, I'll turn it over to you.
Tim. Thank you for having us out tonight. So we'll try to move through this pretty quickly. And as Tim said, please stop if there are questions. So, they're centered in the map is Ross Township. See many of the neighbors around are already taking advantage of aggregation programs. So Liberty, Westchester, Springfield, Township, Coleraine, a lot of the large ones around have already moved on this and taken advantage of using the buying power of all the residents to try to negotiate better natural gas and electric rates for residents instead of people trying to do it on their own. So we encourage people to shop and to look. A lot of times what you'll find is people may get a good deal and then they forget and then things will start to roll. And we're talking to a lot of people now who may have, again, had good deals a while ago. And while Duke's rates are less than 7 cents, they're paying 10 or 11 cents now for electric, or even more than $1 for gas when they had great deals a while ago. So again, this is not an uncommon thing in Southwest Ohio. The next slide will show us, these are the number of communities that we work with. Predominantly, again, in Southwest Ohio, there are 2 around the greater Dayton area, and then one up towards Columbus. For the most part, this is our home down here, and these are the communities that we work with. So before we get into some of the details of aggregation, let's talk about how it all works. I think sometimes there's some confusion on even how it all goes. So at the top of we'll call it the chain, is where you have the generators and the suppliers. So these are the people who own the power plants. They're the ones who generate the power and put it onto the power lines itself. So Duke, I think a lot of people get confused that Duke is at the top. Duke is not at the top in this case. Duke does not own any generation anymore. I know that because I was part of the generation back in 2015 when they decided that part of the business was too risky for them. So they got away from that. And what Duke did then was focus on that middle portion, that they left the generation to other people. And they decided we want to be a distribution company. So whether it be distribution of the electric, the next side is very similar as far as distribution on the gas, but the utility sits there in the middle. So again, a lot of misconception when it comes to shopping or irrigation. People say, well, I want to stay with Duke. Well, since Duke doesn't have any generation at the top, you're not with Duke anyway for that. They actually auction off their generation twice a year. So, right now, the actual suppliers of the aggregation, or in this case, the generators of the aggregation, they're not even local. I mean, they're from all over the country. None of them actually have headquarters here at all. Most of them not even in Ohio. So you have the generators at the top. Duke is there in the middle, just making sure that all the electrons make it to where they have to make it to. And then all of us are the end use customers when it comes to the electric. Similar to gas, again, you have the producers and the suppliers. These are people outside of Duke. It's just Duke's job there in the middle to make sure that the natural gas flows from producers to all of us as the end use customers. So just, we like to show those 2 slides that kind of illustrate where the different parties sit throughout this kind of supply chain, because again, there's always some confusion that Duke is sort of the top in the middle, where really Duke is only in the middle of this entire thing.
I like to tell folks now that my job at Duke was to get the power and gas to your home. And Duke, by law, that is the case. They're just the distribution company. Now my job is to help everybody save on the utility bills. Rich?
So what is an aggregation program? Well, it's the ability for townships, cities, villages, even counties to say, hey, we want to give the voters a chance to vote to say, allow us to look at this. And then it's the ability of bringing everybody within inside of that community together to a supplier and say, give us a price, what's fair. And what we find in most cases that you could find favorable prices as well as favorable terms and conditions that what people can find on their own. This doesn't just happen. It's very well controlled by the state of Ohio. There's certifications that have to happen with the Public Utilities Commission. So it's not as if you just say, hey, let's do this. And there's a lot of steps and regulations that have to go along with that. As I said, townships, villages, cities, counties, all of these different governing entities can do it. And also not rare in the state with right now over 400 communities doing electric and over 250 communities doing natural gas. Not rare at all. If you would decide to do an aggregation, what changes? Really for the end use customer? Nothing. You would still get a bill from Duke, whether it be for the gas or the electric. So that makes it very simple because it's Duke's job to make sure that the electrons or the gas flow from the generator to the end use customer. They still take care of all that if there's outages. So Duke still does everything. Really, when it comes down to the aggregation or if somebody shops on their own, it's all a financial transaction in the background that takes a few line items on your bill that right now pay to Duke. Those go away because they're called bypassable, and then they're replaced by what would get negotiated again, either on the electric side or the gas side. And even things like, many people take advantage of budget billing. You can still do that on these programs as well. So yeah, really nothing changes except for 2 line items on a bill. So who's eligible? Because these are opt-out programs, initially when they start, those that are not currently shopping with an alternate supplier, so those who have chosen to go out there and look for other offers, they're not initially eligible with it being an opt-out. And the reason for that is nobody knows what those folks agreed to. But we don't know their price, we don't know they have termination fees, so it wouldn't be fair to make them part of this opt-out program because they may have a better term or price, whatever it may be. So those people are not initially eligible. However, the programs that we manage do have opt-in abilities. So people who are shopping on their own, if they decide at some later time they want to opt in, they are able to do that. But at least as far as the initial opt-out, those who are shopping are not eligible. Those who are on any kind of percentage payment, income payment, those are typically lower income households that already have a special arrangement with Duke. This is different than budget billing. They're not eligible because again, they already have a special arrangement with Duke. And if you've already opted out of the program in the past, you also would not initially, you would not be eligible. You would have to opt in at some later time. So in aggregation, it's beyond just the price. I mean, obviously, the price is extremely important. You want to be competitive to Duke's rates, but the terms and conditions also need to be favorable. We run programs that have no termination fees so that people want to go shop, they can do that. They're never stuck in the contract. It's important that the aggregation program, you have people like us, obviously the trustees, everybody kind of part of the process of looking at the rates, looking at the program, that it's not a thing where it just ends like other programs down and people get auto renewed to crazy month-to-month rates. So, there's that part of the aggregation as well. We have lots of communities that like to look at renewable energy components as part of the aggregation, and this is a way for them to do that as well, either fully as part of the program, as give people a chance to opt in, but it's another component of that we have some communities look at. So in aggregation, it's a value add to the residents and small businesses. It simplifies choice. Really only about 36% of the electric accounts inside of the state that are on a supply choose. Most people don't do anything, and a lot of people that are switched, they do that through aggregation. We think that's it's because it can be overwhelming. There's a lot of choice. I'm actually in a community that does not have an aggregation, and
We're going to change that.
we're going to try. So they don't, and we moved homes about 3 years ago, so I had to go shop for myself. I do this every day. I've been doing it for almost 20 years. And so I went out to the Public Utilities Commission and I'm like, which one do I pick? So I could see how, people trying to do it on their own when they don't do this for a living, how it can be even more overwhelming. So again, it simplifies that choice. It's an option for the residents. And in the case of the natural gas, Duke's rates are variable. So heading into like right now, heading into the winter, those prices could be anything. So, by doing a fixed price offer, let's say for natural gas, it can give you price certainty that right now the utility cannot offer you. So what the aggregation is not, it's not mandatory because it's an opt-out program. Yes, you may get a letter that gives you the chance to opt out, but you can get out. So you never forced to stay in. It's not always the best option for all the residents, right? People may want to shop on their own. So they still, again, even though we like these programs, people should still understand what the program is, what the terms and conditions are, what the prices are, and so on and so forth. So people should understand what that is. And it's, it may not always be, the best price, right? at the time. It's kind of like, hey, I'll buy gasoline for my car today for the next 3 years. I don't know if the gasoline prices, we're gonna do our best to look at that. But if the gasoline prices go down, in 3 years, that's kind of something to look at. So yeah, it's always about trying to be competitive and looking at what we're seeing in the market now to bring very competitive programs to the community. So just, there's a lot here. I'm not going to go through all of it, but really, kind of from start to finish, as we said, this is something that has to go on the ballot to give the residents of the township a chance to vote on. So really from election day to when a program can start is roughly 4 to 5 months. A month after the election, things have to get certified. There's a process of having to get, the election getting certified. Then we have to hold some public meetings about developing a plan of governance. That's the document that shape what does our aggregation look like? How do we want to run it? Then there are some other meetings. We have to file with the state. So again, about 4 to 5 months after the election, you can typically get a program up and running. Yeah, I won't waste your time kind of reading through all those steps. Something that we do, at Energy Alliances, and I think that makes us different than some other consultants is, the awareness. All right, we find that the vote goes well. We find that there's a lot more engagement with the community and understanding with people when we take the time to educate. We've seen people put these things on the ballot and, people don't know what it is, but it's about education. We want people to understand what the program is, how it, should benefit them. And we'll do that through a number of different ways through, working with you to put stuff in your newsletters. We'll send out mailers. We'll help with social media posts, just as you see a list of things, again, about information. We're very big about information. For the community, for the elected officials throughout the entire process. So why us? We look at ourselves as a full service consultant for you. So from helping get it onto the ballot, that process through, all the way through to running the process, running the RFP. This is something we do. We manage all the filings with the Public Utilities Commission. There are fees that come along with that. We cover all of those fees. We have even though we're a local based company, we don't have a call center, but we have people in our office that we take the calls when people call us, especially those that are shopping on their own that want to opt into programs. And, we think about ourselves as consumers too. We have phone, we have email, and it's something we started with in the last 2 years was chat. I know when I want to talk to different businesses, especially when I'm at work, I don't want to take the time to call. It's nice to kind of multitask. So that was something that we brought to our website so people can still do what they're doing, but yet ask us questions on the side. So, a list of things. And I think really that last one's pretty important too, is with the quarterly reports is we send every quarter, how is the program going? So it's not something where even if it's a 2 or 3 year deal that we'll talk to you in 2 or 3 years. Every single quarter, you would get a report to show how is it doing. That keeps us honest and it keeps us constantly looking at the program to make sure that it's still working in the current price environment for the residents. And our final thoughts really is get certified, right? Even if you just go through the ballot process and then you can get a certificate and decide not to do a program, an active program. I think the big thing is to get certified because then you have the ability to move when the market allows. We're seeing some things in the market now, going back to those original slides of kind of that auction process of where the generation happens, that there are going to be some significant price increases with Duke. They run their auction twice a year, in the fall and in the spring. Duke right now, their rates are about 6.78 cents per generation. They ran their first auction at the end of September. They were trying to procure 20% of their price. 40%. Because of how high the prices were, they were only able to get 20%, and that price was 11.5 cents. So they still need to go get 80% of it, but there's some pretty significant prices increases that will come from Duke next summer. So, being certified, even though you likely, your first opportunity would be next November, but it's still this idea of being able to take advantage of the market when it allows, if you're ready to go at that time. This is your, program. So even though we will help facilitate it all, this is your program. It'll run if you would want it to run. And also, let's not chase price alone. It's about looking at the overall market. It's about looking at the overall value of the program. I think terms and conditions are just as important as price. I will leave you with those final thoughts and open up any questions if there are any.
So Rich always does a great job, and I failed to mention in Rich's bio, he also worked for Duke Energy when Duke Energy was in that business. And Rich did all the buying of the electricity and gas for the Duke Energy system. Duke exited that business. Rich is now running this company, which aligns with my values because we do the right thing for the communities and customers. And if we can save a customer a couple of $100s a year and take all this craziness and detail out of it, $200 or $150 in the customer's pocket is another trip to the grocery store or multiple trips. And as Rich said, only about 35% of the people shop because it's so confusing. And they really don't realize on their bill, Duke tells you, here's the price to compare. If you can beat it, go do it. By law, Duke really doesn't want to be in that business. And by law, they're just a provider of last resort. Now it's our job to educate the public here in Southwest Ohio to take the craziness out and make sure that people are getting the best deal they can get. Questions?
That is the certification process of that ballot detail that you didn't go through to start with.
Is it part of that?
Yeah.
Yes.
What is the certification?
Yeah, so after the election, and then after that, there would be 2 public meetings after developing this plan of operations, again, how the plan would work. It is a lengthy document, but we have all that in an application that gets sent to the Public Utilities Commission, and they have 30 days to review that. So it's just a matter of filing paperwork that all the steps have been taken as far as the vote that's been certified, that we've had the 2 public meetings. It's about putting all that document together and sending it to the Public Utilities Commission for certification. But that would all happen after the vote on one of the elections.
And what kind of vote are you talking about on the ballot? Is it like majority rules or some percentage?
Just like every other issue, it passes with,
Passes or doesn't?
it passes or doesn't. Yeah.
And the language is pretty straight, we'll say, we try to keep it pretty simple because all you're saying is, if you're voting yes, you're saying, okay, I give my elected officials authority to explore the options of aggregation. At that point, you're not voting for a price or anything. You're saying, yeah, we're giving them a chance to go out and get bids and look through this process to see if it's something that would benefit the community.
I live in a unique area where Butler Rural provides the electric and Duke provides the gas.
Good point. So we know, and we've got other communities that have Butler Rural or even Big Pound Light, very familiar with that. So the residents of Ross vote on the issue, but Butler Rural's customers are not part of the program because they're a co-op. You have to be on the Duke system to be a part of it. And on the ballot, sir, it would be two different issues. It would be electric aggregation and gas aggregation. You vote separately.
Okay.
So that you would be a part of it on the gas side.
Yeah, so you would be eligible on the gas side, but on the electric side.
Yes.
Explain to them the generator supply, that's where you're at. And then Duke, what price do they have to supply that generator? Just to supply the electric on the poles?
Okay, so I'll take that. So Duke is the distribution in the middle, and that's where I worked for a long time. So Duke will, just like water, sewer, trash, everything else, they have to have rate cases from time to time to invest in the infrastructure and make sure they can get reliable power and gas to you. Of the total bill, that piece that Duke has is about 60% of the total bill, just under 60%. The actual electricity and I'll use electric as it. The actual electric part of it is about 40% of the bill, okay? So we're in a rising price environment, and you're in a position where Duke has a rate case pending right now. So the distribution side is probably going to be, let's just say somewhere between a 2 and 5% increase over the next few months on the distribution piece. Rich talked about on our piece, the 40% of the bill, the generation prices that are coming in. So we're very sophisticated with modeling into the future. And probably next April, May, we're seeing prices in the market at about 10 to 12 cents. Okay, so if they're at 6.5 cents today for people buying directly from Duke, and it goes to 12 cents, they're looking at almost a 50% increase there, plus this distribution increase. Bills are on the rise. And that's why there's a lot of interest in this aggregation program from the communities that haven't done it to date. Because it better positions you as a community and your residents to benefit from the rising energy costs that we all know. Groceries are more expensive, gasoline's more expensive. Everything is just more expensive. But this is an opportunity for people to actually save money. And that's why I'm so excited about bringing those opportunities to people, because we're going to help people. Yes.
What's the ratio of rural electric compared to? Duke?
Great question. So we've already run the numbers. You have, what was it, 16, about 16, slightly under 1,700 accounts on the Duke system that would be eligible for the program. So those are households. About slightly under 1,700 accounts with Duke that would be eligible for the aggregation program.
And gas and electric, or just one?
That was electric.
That's electric.
Yeah.
What's Bubba Rural have?
What's the? Yeah, or do you say number of Bubba rural? Okay, so what's your population? About 7,000. And we estimate what,
Usually it's 9.
about 9,000, and 1,700. I would say Bubba rural probably has, about the same number of Duke customers on the Bubba rural system. And we can find that out very easily.
And that 1,700, we'll call those the eligible. So that already pulls aside the people who were shopping with somebody else. That's pretty much saying if you ran a program starting today, roughly 1,700.
Right. So if an
Could
individual is with a supplier right now, they've signed a contract, they're not eligible for the program. But when their contract expires, or they can get out of their contract, it's a better aggregation price, they can opt in to the aggregation. Yes,
Besides you two, who is Energy
alliances.
Alliances? Yeah.
Well, he's the top officer. I'm going to let him answer. He's my boss.
Yes. So we're a company of about 15 people. We're based out of Sycamore Township, so we're wedged right between where Kenwood Mall is and Ronald Reagan. So we're a local company, but there's about 15 of us on the company itself. We have some people that are dedicated, solely to aggregation, but for the most part, again, it's small business, right? So we all wear a lot of different hats. Though I'm here, tonight, and yeah, I have some fancy title, which is whatever. But, I'm one of the 3 people that, typically will pick up the phone, when residents call. I mean, I'm talking with residents every single day. So it's definitely a team effort that we have at the company.
How old is the company?
How old? It started in 1985.
Been around a long time. So, Rich covered a lot of material and small company, but when you look at what we do through all these aggregation programs, and we also have some commercial and industrial clients as well. Rich oversees all of that, but it's about $1 billion of energy that we're responsible for our customers, and about 500,000 accounts. When you look at the aggregation programs and population and number of accounts. Yes, Jim.
I have 2 questions. One, I think you just answered that asked by the voters, we're certified. We continue to have a conversation, but that includes our businesses. They would be included in the aggregation, although
Up to-
businesses are not voters. But they're in the area, right?
Yeah, under law, in an aggregation program, small businesses included up to a certain consumption.
Up to 700,000 kW.
And then after that, they negotiate on their own in the market, which is what we've done
Yes.
before with other
Yes,
things.
in most cases, it's better for them to do something on their own, but at 700,000, that's a pretty good size, so a lot of, the restaurants, the pizza places, the mom and pop shops around here, most of them will be able to participate in the program.
And if
You're
they're with another
manufacturing.
supplier, they can stay with them.
Right.
That's the beauty of the program.
And if they're that large, they typically have their own consultant that's out there doing their own energy work, and it's a different situation.
Certain percentage.
Some of them. I guess, I got it. Okay, so next question, kind of along that line, small business. But from your perspective, you would be helping us get things to the ballot, get things certified, having that conversation and that guidance. How are you paid for that work?
It was all
Is that
built,
coming from,
yeah. So
Provider or-
we're paid by the suppliers.
that's what, okay, paid by the suppliers.
Yeah, so there was no cost from the township itself. There's no direct cost from the voters. We're paid by the suppliers.
Yes, sir.
So, probably missed earlier part. So how do you charge the rate? So as a individual customer to Duke, I have an option to go to a supplier. What's the difference with your rate and supplier's rate and how does it work? You probably covered it if you
Yeah,
can share.
I'll just use the analogy. It's very similar to insurance. The more you have in a group that's buying insurance, the lower the price. So in an aggregation program, you've got, in Ross Township's case, max 1,788 accounts. So you've got better buying power. And then we take that, we call it load, to the market, and we bid it out to our suppliers and get multiple different prices, and we bring those prices forward. And then, as Rich had mentioned, we consult, we make recommendation on what we think the best conditions in the aggregation program are for the township.
So you decide the price, the rate?
We get bids from the suppliers, and we bring those bids forward.
The reason I'm asking, I also sold natural gas to residential customers back in 2012. What Ohio Public Utility Commission has done is worst thing about deregulating all those things, because you know what happened in Texas, and energy rates are never, you can never bet on that. It can be $10, it can be $100, right? How do you control that? And once customers get into the program, what kind of protection you provide against those rates and stuff?
So the biggest protection, no termination fees. So when we make the recommendation, it's the idea that, like you're saying, at any point, we want to be competitive with the market. We want to be competitive to Duke. And for some reason, we have a case where things really go down. I mean, we're completely honest. Some of our programs didn't fare as well mid 2020, right? But we did, we had no clue about what was going to happen with COVID and commodities, right? So that happened. So we did have people leave the program, right? Because they said, well, I can go out and shop cheaper. That's exactly why we have no termination fees, so that people want to take the time to go, look and shop, they can go do it. So that's really the biggest protection we'll say, is that we're going to come with a fair price to the market. And we're not trying to be the lowest price every day. We're trying to compete against Duke. If people want to chase the lowest price, they could absolutely go do that. But the no termination fee is definitely, a big differentiator with that, because the financial risk becomes almost zero, because they can go do anything they want to.
It's no termination on the individual. It's not a no termination fee on the township's buying power, right?
Correct.
You are, if you choose to jump out, you are individually jumping out, and doing your own work. But the township itself has to stick with whatever bid was accepted for however long it runs.
You're talking about the aggregation program?
The aggregation.
So yes, in most cases, again, by locking into a price, you're going to talk to a supplier, and they're going to go out and hedge something there. Most of them have language in there that, you couldn't go on social, say as a trustee, you couldn't go on social media and say, don't take this program. However, we can be very creative with messaging and conversation as far as how you share that, right? Whether it be the performance reports, so there are ways to be creative in the cases that maybe the program isn't performing as well on doing things. Some of that, we'll control as well. So meaning, there's the initial opt-out that is sent. So those are the people who are eligible. But there's going to be a certain amount of churn in the township too, right? People moving in, people moving out. So people, if the program started today and we got the list from Duke about who's eligible, that list actually becomes outdated by the end of the day, right? Because you're going to have people. So at some point in the future, we're going to do a sweep. And there have been cases where, if we started at the beginning and the savings was really good, and say right now, the price of the aggregation was flat to Duke, maybe we say we're a year or two out, we may not do a sweep. Because we're going to say, why would we do a sweep just to do it? To make people even with Duke. We just won't do, we won't do a sweep right now. So that's the other stuff we're looking at. The performance reports help us a lot too. So I'll give the example, Miami Township, Claremont County. Most people, most homes use most of your stuff in the summer, right? That's when we mostly use on the electric side, use there. You may see a little, kind of dips in the shoulder months and then a little bit of spike in the winter. But for some reason, they use a lot more in the winter than they do in the summer, proportionally. Duke's rate structure, their price to compare, what we're trying to compete against, the more you use, the lower your price. It becomes a weighted math problem. So we saw after the first winter, the program wasn't going to go as we expected. Went back to the supplier, and I said, let's renegotiate this. So they did extend it by, I think it was about 9 months. but we were able to take the price from one thing and lower it down. And now, over the term, the program has worked out. So that, these are things we're constantly looking at, that it's not about locking in the program and then crossing our fingers for the length of time of the program. It's constantly looking, how do we continue to bring a competitive program, whether there's 1 month left or whether there's 30 months left.
You may have said this, but how long is the average program?
It depends. So it really depends on the market. So like right now, because of, I'm a sales guy, I'm the data dork from the office. So I try to, so there are things that right now we've been selling a lot of 24-month programs because of stuff that is known in the market. I don't want to sell them too far into the unknown. So it really depends. We have a lot of programs coming off right now, off of 3-year programs. And we just did 26 of the communities locally for gas. We only decided to do 24 months because of concern. There's a lot of uncertainty right now, just in energy itself, that I was too concerned about going out too far, that if for some reason it rose up so quickly, if it decides to come down, that they're not exposed for, too far out.
Is it another ballot issue to renew each program?
Nope, that's one time. The only time you would ever have to go back to the ballot is if your certificate, actually, even if your certificate lapsed, you wouldn't have to. But part of what we do is every 2 years, it has to be recertified. But there's only one ballot. As long as you don't change the rules on how you run your program, then we just take care of recertifying with the Public Utilities Commission every 2 years.
So does township have options to also like go with your competitors next time or something, or we are married to you or to
Nope. So the way we would look at it is, let's just say we run the first program and it goes out 2 years. For some reason, we screw up and you guys are like, we don't like you guys. We would manage your program to the end of that program, and then you're free. I think our contract is whatever, 3 months notice, something like that. But you're free to move on if you don't feel like we're doing the right thing for the community.
And as I said, like when I used to sell, I would look at people's bill. Like you said, it will save people money if you're doing it right way. And every year you have to look out for that renewal, right? What people do is they don't look out for newer rate, and then they put you on a variable, and that's where the companies make money. So is that the portion of every renewal you come and consult with the township on what the rates are and how it works, and like are they fixed rate or variables good? Right now the rates are higher, and if you lock in 6 months down, probably recession comes and stuff, rates gonna go down, energy prices will go down, and we are locked in at a higher rate. So how do you come and help with those kind of situations too?
So again, it's knowing the market, right? I think there's a difference between natural gas and electric on how that's done. So we do look at those very differently on how we kind of lock those in. You said about renewal. We have, I believe right now, 12 programs that expired sometime between August and they'll expire in December. We are sending them all back to Duke when the program expires because of, as you put it, the rates are really high right now. Duke locked in their rates a year ago when prices were lower. We can't compete with Duke. So it's not fair to make people look at an aggregation program when Duke is the best option. So it's roughly 60,000 residents that are on these programs that between the summer and all of them are going to go back to Duke because we were like, Duke is your best option. We'll look to renew those in the before this big jump in the summer. But I mean, we're not shy to send everybody back. And as I said, we get paid by the suppliers. When we do that, we make no money. So, that's again, trying to proof that we're trying to do the right thing for you as residents. Where's your best option for pricing at any particular time?
And our communities that we're doing work for, feel free to call them. They love us. I mean, we tell everybody, call Hanover Township, call Westchester, call Liberty, call Fairfield Township, Colerain Township, our client list. Our philosophy, Rich's philosophy is if we're not taking care of them, we're not going to have a business. And it's simple. If I don't take care of Ross, he's probably going to fire me. Easy, simple as that.
And I always make the joke, when you do this, obviously everything's public record. It's all in a public forum. I don't want to, have the team make a decision, come here. I don't get yelled at. I think the last thing I wanted is to get yelled at and have it be all over social media that I came to a meeting. I got yelled at in public because we made decisions that weren't right for the community. So that transparency, it leads a lot of what we do as far as making the right decisions.
Derek, do you have a question?
Yeah, is there a way, instead of all this writing here, show us in a chart where you would be at? Because within 2 years, I hope the American people, we will get rid of being dominant with fuel from other countries. We can supply ourselves. So this is going to make a big change in this program also. Not just the fuel, because you're trying to get plants. That's the reason why Jordan and other plants was coal plants. You're trying to do it with either nuclear or doing it with natural gas, stuff like this. Okay, 2 years from now, I hope whoever our president is, we're going to go and support ourselves. We have enough coal. We have enough natural resources. So this whole game is going to change again. Correct?
Yes, but where, for many years, again, even, from, let's say, 2008 till about 2 years ago, right? Natural gas was in abundance, right? We drilled a lot of it. That's why natural gas became the fuel of choice for generation here.
Right.
But that also, that insulated us a lot from price spikes in some ways on natural. Not that there weren't some seasonal, craziness, but there was some insulation there because of that. But now with, especially like what's going on in Europe, and now you could put natural gas on a tanker and send it overseas. The producers, they're out to make money, right? Are they going to sell it into our market at $4 an MMBTU? Or are they going to put it on a tanker and send it to London and sell it for $15 an MMBTU? So I think, this idea that we can become, I would be all for it. But we also live in a nation of, it's capitalist, right? And these producers are out to make money. And some of that, unfortunately, will impact us, that if they can put it on a barge and send it overseas, they'll make a lot more money than living here, which then drives up our price because then there's less to stay here. So it's an interesting game. I think because of how it's done now too, I think it corrects itself very quickly. That when the price was high, they drill. Our storage went up pretty nicely. And then, things like COVID didn't help it. It was already starting to downturn. So it seems to very quickly over a 2 or 3 year period, especially that natural gas now is the fuel of choice in this country for generation and a lot of things. It seems to be in 2 or 3 year cycles where this thing is going to go up, kind of come back down. And I think because of its ability now to leave this country, changes how this country views natural gas too. That what happens outside of our boundaries, outside of our borders, has a bigger impact than it used to have.
We need competition in our own cycle of life, in everything.
Agreed.
So if we have a natural resource like coal, you might not like it, but you can put scrubbers on a plant and create our own source. I have a list here, which I have it, and it shows the price to compare with, and on everybody's bill, it has also, if you want to supply, not the distributing of the electric across the line, off the poles, but what you have to stay with to compete against Duke Energy. And Duke Energy, when you watch, like you said, when you use more energy, their price does go down each house. When you're using less energy, it goes up. And it's something that you got to watch too.
And a lot of those are on the distribution side of the equation.
Right, I understand that, but trying to explain it besides just words, showing a chart or something like that, maybe I'm wrong. That's just the way I am. Built that way, that you can explain to the people, okay, Duke is saying this cost of 3 cents per kilowatt hour is what it talks to get across the telephone. from pole to pole. Then the other price goes up and down depending on the availability, the temperature, and the amount that people are using. Maybe I'm making it too hard. I don't know.
No, and when we would go through the process of coming back with pricing and explaining, hey, you know,
That's where I'm trying to go
yeah,
to.
we would say, you know, this is the price, and it's not just, oh, take this price. I think as you see now, I said before, I'm a data dork, so I'm gonna come here with probably way too much stuff. It's like, here's why we should take this offer, and it's like, here's where Duke has been, here's where we see it going, those kind of things to try to lay it out on, hopefully a graph or two on, you know, why that would be something worth taking. It's tough to do now because you were at least, at this point, at least 18 months before you'd be able to do anything. So it's tough to forecast out, you know,
Yeah,
that far,
and
but
Duke-
at the time of our.
And Duke and other people will have to stay at a certain dollar. They cannot, because of the PUCO.
That's not, I don't believe that's true on the generation side. So that is true on the distribution side, but it's where they have to, they can't exceed a certain thing because they're asking us as ratepayers to pay them. So they can't exceed a certain percentage on that. But on the other side, because that part is fully deregulated, is not the right word, but because they shop for that, that part does not fit into the stress testing that's done by the
This is
state.
what I'm trying to say. I think your write-up is good, but it needs to have an explanation so that you can sell the product, so that if the people of Ross wants it, they can get it performed within 4 to 5 weeks, 4 to 5 months, and then vote on it or something, and then start it, or have to wait for a whole year to vote on it. And then how much time does it take for you to get into it? So what I'm trying to say is, I believe it needs to be broke down to say dollars or a graph, or where this line is not hitting that line, or something like that to make it explainable.
Let us chew on that one, Jerry.
Okay? I'm not trying to pick on you.
No.
I'm just trying to say, make it easy.
Keith, did you have a question?
I did. Why does it require a vote on your company's behalf over the township? When the last I remember, the last company that I signed on to was walking down the street and walked into my driveway and presented the paperwork.
So you were doing it as an individual. When you formed an
Okay.
aggregation.
Because they're driving me nuts now. When I told them about this meeting, they hung up on me last week.
Yeah, because that's considered like an opt-in. So you're giving consent at that point because these are opt-out programs. You
Okay,
need to vote because the default is opting out. So by not, you would get something in the mail that says, if you want this program, don't send this back, don't call this number. That's pretty much a non-response is consent at that point.
okay.
In your case, you were opting in, so that was giving consent.
So with the presentation and your company, and let's say we pass that vote in next November, and again, then your time period for getting everything online. Do I continue to stay away from this company that keeps calling me that I haven't for the last few years? Or can I sign up with it again until the point that you possibly can get in the township and then we can change? Just sure.
You can do whatever you want. Yeah, so you'd be able to opt in at that point.
Okay,
Right. But I always say, I mean, because we run into that a lot where people know a program's coming in and they're a little bit, you know, close to it is, I would say at that point, you wouldn't want to take a program that had a termination fee.
right.
Because if you had 3 months between when you got something, say we couldn't get the program started until the fall. And so your summer usage is gone, you know, the last thing you want to do is save that and then have a $200 termination fee that you pay to try to get into the program in the winter. So that's one thing I would push.
Okay,
If you want to get into something before starting the program, do it without a termination fee so that, or at least manageable.
gives me some questions for them the next time they call. Should be a few more days. Yeah, because you're still looking at it, like you said, 18 months or so. Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm all for collective bargaining and you have 5,000 people and you can negotiate the prices up. But is township obligated to certain amount of supply? Like the time period is there, right? But what if all the residents opt out? Do we still like, hey, you gotta still take 5 million BTUs?
Nope. That's-
Somewhere.
No, that's the risk on the supplier. So whether, you know, that's part of the reason why they'll run these opt-outs, because, you know, they may buy here and have hedged here, and that's, you know, they'll run the opt-out to try to keep it at that level. But as I said, there are ways to get creative that for some reason it's not working, that if it went to zero, there's no obligation on anybody's part.
So then you're buying energy from different companies. And then selling this package to us.
It would be with one company. So we would go out and find a supplier
Okay.
that can bring the best overall product to the community. So it would be just one company.
I didn't know if you went other places too.
Now, we would go out to bid with multiple, but then it would only be one that would actually be the supplier itself.
On what time period would you be with that one supplier?
Again, it depends. It would have to be at least, the way the laws are written, it has to be at least 1 year. But I think it depends on what does the market look like in the future on how long out we would go.
Any other questions? Hopefully we made it simple. It could be a complicated process, but we appreciate the time. And if you have any questions, let us know and we look forward to hearing from you and starting the process for the benefit.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. Good luck in the football.
Yeah.
Great.
Trying to.
Yeah, good question. Good night. Take care.
Night.
Okay, Tim. Thank you.
Hey, Jen.
Good to see you.
Okay, good seeing
You
you.
get the story?
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the department reports. Administration, Lori Kyle.
Good evening. Tonight, administration has one resolution for your consideration. It's to set the holiday schedule for 2023. The fiscal officer likes to have that in place with the holidays that occur right at the beginning of the year. The land use plan that was discussed and revised during the process to write a zoning resolution for the November ballot. Now, the next step will be for it to go to the Butler County Planning Department for adoption. I have reached out to the prosecutor to inquire what those steps would be. He said there is no formal requirement for the adoption process of a land use plan. He said that the board could have a public hearing should you choose to. However, the land use plan was included in the public hearings that were conducted that were required for the zoning resolution. I have reached out to the consultant that we were working with, Wendy Moeller. The Venice overlay plan was included in the resolution itself. So since the resolution was not approved by the voters, I need to confirm how to address that within the land use plan now. So once I have that information from the consultant, we will see what needs to be, any further revisions that need to be done to the land use plan to address the Venice overlay. And then you as a board can either authorize the land use plan to go on to the Butler County Planning Department, or you can hold a public hearing to once again get additional input before you choose to authorize or not authorize the land use plan. So that's where that stands. If you have any questions or anything that you think I need to ask the consultant or the prosecutor about the process. The results of the income survey for the CDBG grant indicated that the area for the project did not meet the income guidelines as low to moderate income. So we will not be moving forward is submitting a grant for paving for that area. And finally, there's a nuisances update in your packet. That's all that administration has this evening.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Like, were there parts of the CDBG, like we could get part of the road, or really it was sort of hit or miss the whole way through? And
It really wasn't, yeah. We really weren't close. We needed 51% or more low to moderate income, and we were like at 35, and we only needed one more. But thank you to the trustees and to the road superintendent for assisting with getting completed. That was great, great help.
well, thank you to you who walked it several times with each of us, so.
Okay, we'll move on to the fire department. Does anybody have a report?
The fire chief asked for me to report for him that the department would like to thank all of the mutual aid that they received when there were 2 structure fires last week, and also the assistance on EMS calls that occurred while the department was busy with the fires. And he also asked that I report that an accident occurred last weekend when a motorist struck a pole that the outdoor weather siren is on the 2600 block of Lehigh Road. All indications are that the siren is a total loss due to the impact to the pole, which caused fatal damage to the siren and its components. And we are working with OTARMA for the claim, and then it should be acted against the driver's insurance company. So that is being taken care of through the insurance companies. And that's all that he had to report on.
Okay, we'll move on to the road department.
Can I ask a
What?
question? Do we know what the lead time is for a siren? Like, do we know if Butler County has a stash of them, or? is it like a 6-month
Actually, the fire
process to get
chief
one?
was able to contact whoever had originally installed them. And so,
So we should be pretty
yes,
good with coverage if, okay,
yes, I believe he's pretty much, yeah, he's got it ready to
ready to go.
go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ellen.
Okay, road department,
I have no report tonight.
police department.
Officer Hale did a great job assisting Butler County Sheriff's Office last week with the homicide that they had up on Chapel Road. He was one of the initial officers that was on scene, and I've received lots of compliments from the sheriff's office for how he handled himself and his assistance. In fact, he was the one that observed the suspect vehicle when it pulled back up to the scene here and gave the notice to the sheriff's department when they did the traffic stop. So wanted to give a shout out to Officer Hale on the job that he did. I applied for the Rural Violent Crime Reduction Initiative. It's only for agencies that are in rural areas. And when I spoke with them, they said that we did meet the qualifications for that. You can receive up to $150,000. You can use it for equipment, training, salaries, stuff along those lines. There's no matching funds or anything like that. So it was an opportunity for another grant opportunity for the police department here. So I applied for some equipment and for mostly it was for equipment, but some of it also for salaries for investigations and stuff like that that would go along with dealing with the violent crimes. So we had to give them our statistics and everything. So hopefully we get approved for it. I don't know a timeline for them because the deadline for it that submitted was, I think, the middle of December. So it'll probably be a little bit before I hear back from that grant. Also, I gave everybody a copy of the lease proposal from Norris Tactical whenever you get a chance to look at it. I believe that's what they've used with other locations that they do that or have that they're training at. So I think that's just pretty much a carbon copy from what they've used. So I also forwarded that on to Dawn Frick in case she had any questions about it. And the K-9 went through the high school, I think it was 2 days ago, and alerted on some vehicles. And I think they ended up with one arrest out of the school. And finally, I had sent an email also about the ride-along program. Would there be an issue with that student riding? if he signs the waiver for the ride along. It's part of the business marketing class for Hamilton Baden.
Oh, I forwarded you an email on that, as
Correct,
long as it
yes.
was some kind of a requirement by the school and his parents did sign off if he's under the age of 18, that I'm all right with that. We do it in Oxford Township with college students and Talawanda.
Okay.
So he wants to ride when?
Monday, the 21st,
During the day or at night?
during the day.
And he's under 18 or he's 18?
Actually, I don't know how old he
I think
is.
he's 17.
He's 17. We do have a ride-along waiver form for others, so obviously he would sign that, or I can get the parents also to sign it since he would be underage.
You have enough officers out there to handle certain calls, so he doesn't go on them if
Well, I
the
mean,
situation.
so Art would be working Monday, so if he shows up, or if he did the ride-along, then, I mean, I trust Art that he would use some common sense that if it's a,
But Art's not the
Situation's
only
not getting
one,
out of it.
yeah, Art's not the only one who's gonna have to go or be stuck making a choice between
Right.
bringing a 17-year-old. I mean, I'm all about the experience, right? But a 17-year-old doesn't need to necessarily be everywhere,
correct. Yes.
but we have coverage. You feel good that,
I mean, I can cover the road as well, I mean, during that time, so I mean, that's not an issue.
and how long does he want to ride for?
I'm guessing just a few hours. He didn't, I don't think the email specified how long it was.
Okay. If his parents sign off, it's during the day, we've got coverage. Good.
And
Okay.
that's all I have. Thank you.
And I'm going to speak about the lease agreement with, what was the name of the company? North Tactical LLC. Did everybody else have an opportunity, since it just went out today, to read this?
No.
I have 3 questions to solve.
Okay.
Term agreement on number 5 is from 1/1/23 to 12/31/26 for a 3-year base term. I may have read a little bit towards the end of this agreement that there might be an opt-out, but are we stuck for the solid 3 years in case there's some kind of unhappiness with the Board of Trustees and what they're doing, that we would like to opt out after a year, maybe opt out after 2 years? Or are we solid that we're with this term agreement that we signed is for the 3 years?
I would have to find out. I can
Okay.
get clarification on that.
Let's do that one. Another one on number 13 is signage. And it does specify internal and external signs without prior permission from the board and where these are located and the size and what they're actually meant for. External, that to me would have to be okayed by the board. I know we don't want anything on the front of the building, the side. I understand if he has to have some kind of an entry sign for the type of training they're using, but he just can't stick a sign for this contract anywhere on our building or place anything out front indicating that this is their training facility. And let me see here. And I didn't understand on line number 21, leaser's right of entry to display a for rent sign 30 by 24 inches. This is something that was the part that if we terminated something or if they terminated something, but I didn't understand why there would be some kind of a sign. Again, like I said, he's used this for other businesses, but I'd like to know why that's in there.
I'm thinking that's what he's referring to, that if we wanted or if we allowed other agencies to use that.
Yeah.
That we could charge them for the use of it, is what I'm guessing is what that's related to, but I can find out for you.
Okay, that was out of the whole thing. That was the only 3 that I came up with that I was, had additional questions and answers. If we can get those.
Okay,
Okay,
That's all I have.
thank you.
we'll move on to public participation. Does anybody want to address the board? Okay, we'll move on to old business. There's none from the administration. Is there any from the board? We'll move on to new business. Township-owned properties located at the end of Morgan Lane. I was approached by an individual that wanted to know if the township was in a position or if they were interested in selling the lot that the township owns. or it may be 2 lots, according to this. I don't know. My only concern was that at one point, we were going to use that in a JED, and Lori said that that never came about, so that it's just property that the township owns. It's down on Morgan Lane. I do think that if we do decide, or if you want to check into it and bring it up at the next meeting, but all of this has to be done open. It has to be said that we are selling the property, put it up for bid. We can do highest bid, takes it. That's the steps we check into as to how we go about doing that. But there has been interest here and there as to whether or not we want to sell that parcel of ground down there. It's a total of 4.193 acres. We don't do anything with it as far as I know of. Does anybody else? It's pretty much a hole.
How did we get it in the first place?
It was given to us, to the township as, what was happened down there? They were using it for the dirt.
They were taking the dirt to UDF.
Yeah.
Was it donated or was it the property purchased by the
I
township?
don't think we bought it. I think it was just given to us.
So UDF scraped it and then gave it?
What's your,
Can we use it then? I never even thought about this. Instead of us going and buying dirt or gravel or whatever's down there, can we go mine it ourselves and use it?
Check into it,
It's our property, right?
right? We still own it. So it'd be a matter of deciding which is the better way to go with it, to just keep digging it and everything.
I'll go look at it and see if it's of use to us
Okay.
and let you know.
In the meantime, Lori, find the process again about how we go about if we do decide to sell it or keep it or whatever.
I'd also think about, like, depending on what's out there, if there's some that you could scrape and use, should. Gotta be careful that we're not creating weird wetlands and things like that that bite us
Right.
down the road, right? But if the whole idea was to put this into some kind of productive use, right?
Thought there was something to do with the floodplain issue as well.
That's what I was looking to see, if there's water around there, and I couldn't.
Well,
There's
the
nothing in here
river's
that
there.
clearly yells water, except for where you could tell they've dug something.
every building that's on Morgan Lane, and because I trucked a lot of dirt in there, has been raised up
Right.
many, many feet.
Because we're coming
Days
off
of
the
trucking
floodplain
dirt.
off of this.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
We're coming off the floodplains coming out this way.
Yeah, from 128 just to Morgan Lane to a dead ends right there. Every one of these buildings were raised up.
Are they still good under the new maps, and is it still floodplain, not floodway? Do we know?
For the buildings that are presently there or the,
Well, when
Open
FEMA went
parcel.
through and did the maps a couple of years ago, some things changed. So I don't know how much changed out here, but we got some buildings that we're in and they're out and there's a lot of conversation, right? That if we didn't have a building, we may not have really worried about it on that property.
Well, down in here is Venice Gardens, and nothing changed there
On the maps.
because they have to still purchase the flood insurance on a loan and stuff like that. So
So that
nothing changed in that respect.
I'm thinking we want to be aware, right? We wouldn't want to create another problem. If you own that property and you want to talk about productive JED use or whatever, and that's one of your pieces that could go in easily. And not to force it on anyone, but to have that conversation. And talk
Right.
about road improvements to Morgan and how you can use that JED, that property to fund those. There are ways to get rid of it that don't involve highest bidder. You can use authorities, you can use community improvement corporations, you can use things that already exist in order to make a good sale, a sale that works for everybody and has some creativity to it, but I think the first step, and
Which is-
that's easy to put together, right? That's not hard, but I think the first step is if Paul gets out there and there's something that looks
He can
useful, we
use.
want to take a look at that. The rest of it is just to have a conversation with those places out there and see what their thoughts and needs are and see if we can use that parcel to make some of those things happen for them. And then create a revenue stream for the township. That's not a particularly hard one.
So we'll get back with that at the next meeting. Paul, you'll let us know.
Sure.
Okay, thank
Paul's
you.
already over there, he's got plans.
Sorry.
You got plans already, I'm thinking.
Move on to the announcements. We'd like to thank the following residents that served on the zoning commission. They were Greg Young, John Fisher, Mike Hyup, Steve Balsey, Janice Adler, Diane Severall, and Lee Stankin. We'd also like to thank the fellow residents that responded to the request for candidates to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals: Charles Benjay, Robert Glover, Roy Miller, Dr. Bradley Schultz, and Raymond Wurzelbacher. Is there anything further from the board? Any announcements?
No?
None. Correspondence? Have none. Resolutions. Earlier in the meeting, the administrator discussed the need to establish the 2023 Ross Township holiday schedule. The following resolution approves that schedule. I'd like to move for the adoption of resolution number 2022-066, establishing the 2023 Ross Township holiday schedule. I need a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Wait, I have a question before we go to roll call for discussion. Do we have to do this every year? It can't just be part of like adopted policies that it's always January 1, it's always.
Well, it seems like last year we almost ran into a problem because with holiday that fell on a Saturday, we observed it on a Sunday. I think that might have been January 1st. So actually it fell into a different year and a different pay period. And it was just kind of messy.
Okay.
So it
it's
just
really-
seemed kind of easy
Okay.
just to in advance. But it did used to be included in the first of the year
So I was thinking
housekeeping
like, it's just, the
resolution.
okay, so it can't, like, on the city side, it's just in our policy handbook. If it falls on a Saturday, you observe it on a Friday. If it falls on a Sunday, you observe it on your Monday, and here's your list of ones you get. That sums us up.
Well, and then we have these footnotes about, what part-time employees get, but
If it changes every year, I mean, that's okay. I'm not trying to make it harder, but if it's fairly consistent every year, it's just identifying what year Martin Luther King Day falls on. Make a policy, it says Martin Luther King Day. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Does that make it harder? Like
This is-
department heads?
I mean, I thought it was pretty common sense that if a holiday falls on a weekend or whatever, we recognize it on that Monday or whatever, so. I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
It's not, it's just one resolution. I'm just thinking like, how do we build just consistency and not have a situation where something happens one year, we forget, we are in a pickle. Maybe we just. pass
For
it this year.
example, Veterans Day is on November 11th, but it's observed on November 10th.
Probably a
So-
Saturday.
Correct. So this is
So
not a big deal.
our policy just says Veterans Day. And then there's a disclaimer that if it's a Saturday, you're gonna do it on a Friday. Again, it's not a huge deal. I'm just thinking like, how do you build in? There's just less busy work, that it's already anchored. So we can go ahead and do it. I just didn't know why was looking for the history on why we do it every year. And it seems like it's really just to tailor it to the following year, but nothing's changing in terms of the holidays. Right?
correct. I'll discuss this with the fiscal officer and see if it's just
It would
included.
just make her life easier to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Trustee Patterson,
Yes.
trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee Yordi.
yes. In order to financially allow the receipt of donations received in memory of Tom Wilsey to purchase a new sofa for Fire Station Number 102, funds must be added to the fire department's 2022 financial budget. This resolution adds those funds. I'd like to move for the adoption of resolution number 2022-067, amending revenue in a fund and requesting an amended certificate of estimated resources from the Butler County Auditor. I need a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Patterson,
Yes.
trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee Yordi.
Yes. I'd like to move for the adoption of motion 22-179 to pay the bills as presented through the fiscal officer's certification of purchase orders. I need a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Patterson,
Yes.
trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee Yordi.
Yes. I'd like to move for the adoption of motion 22-180 to retroactively approve change in pay date for last pay to Thursday, November 10th, 2022, due to Veterans Day falling on payday Friday, November 11th, 2022, and the bank was closed. I need a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Patterson,
Yes.
trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee Yordi.
Yes. I'd like to move for the adoption of motion 22-181 to retire to executive session to discuss the appointment or compensation of a public employee or official in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22G1. The time is 7:22. I need a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Patterson,
Yes.
trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee Yordi.
Yes. Okay, the next, we'll go into executive session, but the next budget hearings are November 21st and December 5th at 5 PM. The next regular meeting is December 1, 2022 at 6 PM here at this building. And I thank you all for coming.
We're not, there we go, we're good. So we were red, we're good.
And I'd like to move for an adoption of a motion 22-182 to return from executive session to the regular meeting. It's now 8:14. I need a second.
Second.
Roll call.
Trustee Patterson,
Yes.
trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee Yordi.
Yes. There being no further business to come before the board, I'd like to move for the adoption of motion 22-183 to adjourn the meeting. I need a second.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Trustee Patterson,
Yes.
trustee Blower,
Yes.
trustee Yordi.
Yes. The next, there will be a budget hearing on 2023 for the budget hearing. Will be November 21st and December 5th. Each meeting starting at 5 o'clock here at this building. The next regular meeting will be December 1st, 2022 at 6 PM. Thank you.